Hi there, this is Jen, and thanks so much for stopping by today. I feel like I haven't made a video in such a long time, but I think it's just been right before Thanksgiving was my last video. So I'm back today to share a video using some visible image products, and the stamp set that I'm going to start out with is this stamp set called Christmas Chaos. And I'm going to be using mainly the tree, but I also use a stamp that has the 25 on it. And I have used some watercolor paper. And along with those, I'm using some Ken Oliver color bursts. And this color I'm using first is the turquoise. And so I'm just going to spread that powder onto my watercolor paper. And I have two pieces of paper because I'm going to stamp that tree out 3 times, and so I wanted to make sure I had enough room for that. And so to activate that powder, I'm just going to take my spray bottle and spritz that, and it just moves the color really beautifully. It's really organic, and it's just so random that I love it. And so I'm going to take my heat tool and dry it a little bit, and then I'll take my water as well if I feel like some areas are a little bit too dark. And then once that has dried, I'm going to use some sap greens, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit of the powder onto my paper and then activate that with water and move that around. And then I will take my heat tool again and dry this up so that I can get ready to stamp the trees. And so here I am. I'm going to take some Versafine Clair in Nocturne, and I'm going to stamp up 3 trees. So I tried to pick out the kind of the pattern that I wanted behind the tree. And again, I'm stamping that up with some Versafine Clair in Nocturne. This is a pigment ink, which means it resists water, and it is just a really awesome ink for details as well. So once I have the tree stamped out, I'm going to take my scissors and fussy cut these. Now, you might think these are hard to fussy cut, but they're really not. I don't go exactly where all the little branches come out. I'm just kind of moving my scissors back and forth to kind of give the effect that I'm doing that. And then I will clean it up if I find any areas that I feel like need a little bit more trimming. But these are going to be stacked on top of each other, so it's not super important, but it's really hard to tell that if your cutting isn't perfect. And so for 2 of the trees, I'm going to score those right in the middle because I'm going to, on my card panel, I want these to be a little bit dimensional. And so on 2 of the trees I'm going to score, and then the other tree is going to be flat against the card panel. And this is going to be my main card panel right here. I'm using this Simply Snowflake stamp set, and so it has 1 big snowflake and then 2 smaller snowflakes. And I'm using watercolor paper again, and I'm going to prep this with my anti-static bag because I will be doing some heat embossing. And so I will stamp these images up with some Versamark, and that is a watermark ink, and it is slightly sticky, so when you spread the powder on it, the powder will stick to the image, and then once you apply heat, it will melt the little particles of plastic, which are the embossing powders. And so I went ahead and I stamped the bigger snowflake up twice, and then I also added a smaller snowflake off to the side eventually, so that there are 5 snowflakes in all. And then I will heat set that with my heat tool. And then now I'm taking this Stamping Up kind of like a glitter embossing powder, and so that I don't have to re-stamp in the Versamark, I am just taking my heat tool, I'm heating up the image and the plastic, and so that the glitter will stick to it. And then I'll go ahead and heat set that again. And I wanted a really subtle background because the trees are pretty bold, and so I wanted to try and keep that as white as possible. But the snowflakes weren't really showing too much. I did go ahead and spray some Shimmer Spray over the entire panel and then heat that. And then to get my snowflakes to come out a little bit, I'm going to take this distress spray, and this is Antique Linen. And I went ahead and I sprayed the entire panel, and then I'm going to take a paper towel and blot up kind of all of those little blotchy marks, so it gives it more of a muted background without all of the little splatter pieces, I guess. And so that brings out the snowflakes a little bit better so that you can see them a little bit better against that white background, which is now an antique linen background. And then I'm going to take this next stamp that has the 25 in it, and I am using some Distress Oxide ink in tea dye, and I'm just going to stamp that up in several places around my card panel. And then for my trees, I'm going to go ahead. For the first one, it's going to be adhered directly to the card panel. And so I did use both my tape runner and some liquid glue because I was having a hard time getting it to adhere and stay adhered. And so that first one is going to be flat. And then I'm going to take my tape runner and put a strip of adhesive down the middle of this tree, and I'm going to take some silver twine that I have and just zigzag back and forth and stick that twine kind of like it's lights or a garland or something like that. And so I'm just going to move that back and forth until from the top to the bottom. And then I will add some double-sided adhesive to my next layer, which is the second tree. And this is one of the ones with the fold, so this will be dimensional. And for this one I use some heavy-duty adhesive. I think I just said that. And then I'll go ahead and adhere that to that first tree. And then I'm going to take the adhesive again and follow the same process with adding the silver thread. And so again, I'm just going to zigzag back and forth from the top to the bottom so that it looks a little bit like a layer of garland. And then for the last tree, I will add some heavy-duty adhesive, and that will just go on top, and I will not be putting any thread on top of that. And I struggled with if I should add anything else to that. I end up adding a little bit of white splatter about as far as the outside of the card. That's all I did to it, and I might end up adding some jewels or some sequins or some other kind of bling, but I think I kind of like the subtlety of the card with the muted background and then the really pretty tree color. And I didn't put a sentiment on the outside, but I am going to use this stamp set called Sentimental Christmas, which I absolutely love. I love the fonts, I love the sentiments, and I'm going to add one of the sentiments and then the holly and stamp that up on the inside of the card using some Versafine Clair Nocturne. And that will finish off the card. I kind of pulled up the tree pieces to get that dimension, and then there is the inside, and that will do it for me today. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did like it or find it informative, please go ahead and give a thumbs up. As always, I thank you so much for taking some time out of your day to spend with me, and I hope to catch you next time. Thanks so much.